Hi, I'm Jonathan Adair from ECR. I'm here at Mad Elevator to show you how to install an ECR A-Look cab. These are the crates that we would send your cab in. They're made of 5/8 plywood so that they're very tough. Each crate has an image on the front which shows the contents of the crate and a packing list which itemizes each piece. There's a universal baffle strip that was screwed to the top of one crate. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And there's a Robertson bit that comes with the one crate that you can use to open up your crates in case you don't have one in your kit. I say we open them up and have a look. Now let's put this cab together. The first thing we have to do is wipe down the walls so that it's a nice clean surface. Now we're going to spray paint the upper corners of the shell. This is to make sure that the area disappears from view after you've installed your reveals and your top cap. Now we're going to install the reveals. The one we'll start with will be the ones in the front corner. Now, you don't have to worry about marks on the floor for the front corner reveal because the point of reference is actually the front wall. We're going to start from the bottom and work our way toward the top, but make sure it's square when you do that because if it's on an angle, by the time you get to the top, you'll see quite a difference. Now we're going to install the corner reveals. You'll notice that there's tape on only one side, not both. That's because when we put it into position, we set it against the wall and we slide it into the tape. Now we're going to pull the plastic off the reveals. It's important that you don't touch it with your bare hands because it'll make a mark and that will make cleanup harder later. Now it's time to install the kick plates on these cabs. We call these hollow vented removable kick plates because they are hollow and because they're secured to the shell wall through the vent slots and through these holes on the back. This way, when you need to work on the floor, you're able to remove the kick plates and work on the floor and then reinsert the kick plates without removing any of the other panels on the wall. When we install the cab, we're going to use these notches that are put in the dead center of the kick plate. There's one on the top and one on the bottom, so you can't really put this in upside down. This is going to help us by allowing us to find the center of the wall that we're going to install the kick plate on, lining up the notch, and installing the kick plate in place. Now that I've installed the kick plate, I'm going to install the rear wall and the other side kick plate in exactly the same way. Now we have to install the half extrusion starters. They feature a tapered slot on the side, and that's where we're going to screw the starter strip to the shell wall. It also features a blade that the panel slides into in order to be secured into place at the bottom. This slot is the reason that A-Look panels are reversible. Now I'm going to install this half extrusion starter, and in order to do that, we're going to set it on top of the kick plate. And we're going to ensure that we leave 1/8 of an inch at the end of the kick plate to account for the panel edges, which we have to install afterwards. Now it's time to install the A-Look panel edge. It's installed on top of the kick plate and sits just in behind the starter strip. Its purpose is to protect the side of the panel so that it can't be easily damaged. As you can see, this panel edge has to fit in behind this starter strip here. And in order to do that, I'm going to loosen the screw I just put in here a little bit so that the panel edge can slide in behind it. Now it's time to install the number 2 panels, or also called base panels. You'll see that it has a slot in the top of the panel here, and that slot allows it to slide into the half extrusion that we already installed. These are 5WL panels from Rigidized. You'll notice in this panel, which is just backwards, that it has an aluminum backer. That's because we want to have metal on the front and back, gives us a nice mechanical balance and gives us a very stable panel. Let's install this panel onto the half extrusion. Now that I have the panel rotated into the correct orientation, I just slide it onto the half extrusion starter. You'll want to make sure that it's properly seated in place, otherwise the wall will become progressively more crooked as you build it up. So now it's time to secure the interlock extrusion to the panel edge in the corner. By doing this, we'll ensure that the panel edge is tightly against the edge of the panel here, which gives you a nice tight fit and gives you the best look. Now that we've got the number 2 panel or base panels installed in the corners to connect the side extrusions, we're just going to put a few extra screws in the center. For the narrow walls, 2 screws will do, and on the rear wall that's wider, maybe give it 3 extra screws, and that should do it. Now it's time to install the handrail panels. These are stainless steel panels. You'll notice that they have a slot at the bottom. That goes into the interlock extrusion that's at the top of the base panel that we just installed as well. You'll notice that because this is a stainless steel panel, it has aluminum on the back to give us good mechanical stability. Finally, you'll notice that these panels have holes pre-drilled to show you where the handrails will be mounted later on. Now we're going to install the side panels. These are horizontal panels out of the Ashbury model. You'll notice that they have a slot in the bottom of it, just like the handrail panel did. And you'll also notice that it has the same plastic laminate on the back side as the front side. That means that if that front side of the panel gets damaged, you don't have to flip out, you just have to flip it. You pull the extrusion off, rotate the panel, put the extrusion back on. Same price, twice the life. Let's put it on. Now that we've installed the second panel above the handrail, we're going to repin in the corner so that we can bring the panel edge extrusion into the panel and tighten it up once more, just like we did on the base panel. Now in this segment, we're going to install the vertical A-look panels on the rear wall of this cab. Vertical A-look panels are not reversible, even though they're made of plastic laminate. That's because on the one side, you have an extrusion, but on the other side, there's no extrusion, and it has to be held by a Z-clip. Let me show you. You see the Z-clip penetrates the back of the panel. This prevents you from reversing it. Before we install this vertical panel on the wall, we're going to have to install the companion Z-clip that goes with the one that's on the back of the panel. In order to do that, we have to determine the height of this Z-clip. So, we take the Z-clip and we install it. Then, we're going to measure from the bottom of the panel up to the bottom of the Z-clip. This comes to about 2 feet and 1/4 inch. We don't want the Z-clip to be all the way in. We want to slide it down a little bit. So in this case, it will be 2 feet even. At 2 feet, the Z-clip is going to not slide all the way to the top here, and it's going to make it a lot easier for you to put this Z-clip on the shell wall in the correct position. It gives you some flexibility, both left and right, and up and down. I have a framing square. The framing square is actually 2 feet high on the long side. So in my case, I'm going to put the Z-clip right at the top of the framing square. One last thing to note. The Z-clip is 1 1/4 inches in from the edge of the panel. We'll have to make sure that our Z-clip on the wall is also 1 1/4 inches in. So now I can put that Z clip on the wall. I have all the information I need. As you can see, I have put the framing square into the slot in the extrusion, and that puts 24 inches at the top of the framing square. If it happened that the position of the Z clip did not let me use a framing square, then I could just measure it with a tape measure like this. I go up 24 inches and I make a mark with the pencil. You recall I also have to measure 1 1/4 inches in from the side of the extrusion. Perfect, 1 1/4 inches. Now I can install my Z clip. Now we're going to install the center rear mirror on this. It's also a vertical panel. This glass is mounted on a polycarbonate substrate. Polycarbonate's the same material we use to make hockey masks, so it's very, very tough. It's pretty much the only thing we Canadians think about. There's a slot here on the side, and that slot will go into the interlock extrusion on the vertical panel. And there's also a slot along the bottom. That slot will go onto the interlock extrusion above the handrail panel. We'll slide it into place, drop it down, and we'll be ready to install it. Now, before I lift this mirror into place, I want to remind you that when you're installing a mirror panel on a wall, you have to place it flat on the wall and slide it down. If you tilt it and then place it in place and try to rotate it up, you'll crack the mirror at the bottom, and then you'll have to give me a call to buy a new one. Now it's time to install the right-hand vertical panel on the rear wall. This panel has a slot on the side and the bottom so that it can go into the interlock extrusion that's on the mirror and on the one that's on the handrail panel. Also, there's a slot at the top, which is part of the way we connect it to the top cap in the end. When we install this panel, it's a little bit of a move. We have to be able to lift it up so it's clear of the interlock extrusion on the handrail panel, rotate it so it's out of the way of the Z clip on the side, slide it into the interlock extrusion on the mirror, rotate it back so that it's now over the Z clip, and drop it into place onto the interlock extrusion on the handrail panel. Let's put it on. All right, the last two steps we have to do for this install are, we have to install this interlock extrusion on top of the vertical panels on the rear wall. This is required to hold those panels at the top and to mount the top caps on. Now let's have a look at the top caps. These top caps are made of stainless steel, and of course they have aluminum on the back, just like the handrail panels, to give us mechanical balance. The top cap also has these tabs along the top. These tabs are there to accommodate the removable hidden pad hooks. Each handrail kit comes with two consumable kits like this. The consumable kits contain 5 togglers, 5 1/4 20 bolts, 2 set screws, which are spares, 5 lock washers, and 5 washers. These handrails are installed from inside the elevator using these split standoffs. The split standoffs allow you to attach this half to the elevator shell wall, and then the handrail is slid into that half of the standoff, and it's secured with this set screw. The togglers slide through a 1/2 inch hole in the elevator shell wall. Once the toggler's through the hole, you rotate the back of the toggler so that it rotates 90 degrees like this, And then you slide a retention ring down like this. Once that retention ring is in place, you snap off the sides and this part of the toggler will be behind the shell and this part will be in front of the shell. You can now attach your standoff to this toggler. To attach the split standoff to the shell wall, we're going to use a 1/4-20 bolt. We're going to add a lock washer. We're going to add a regular washer to that, and we'll insert that assembly into the split standoff. Then we'll screw the 1/4-20 bolt into the toggler, which has been already inserted into the shell wall, like this. Once that's snugged up, then the standoff will be secured to the shell wall from inside the cab. Once we have the standoff attached to the shell wall with the toggler, we're then able to put the handrail into the split standoff, tighten up the set screw here, and the handrail is now installed. Now we're going to drill the holes in the shell wall to accommodate the standoffs. We do that in 3 steps: 1/4 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. We do that because a 1/2 inch drill bit can create a lot of torque and you can hurt yourself. Now that we've installed all the standoffs in the shell wall, we're going to peel off the vinyl from the handrail panels. We're doing this because after we install the standoffs onto the wall, it would be difficult to peel that vinyl back. Let's pull it back now. All right, now that we've got the vinyl removed from the handrail panels, we can install these split standoffs. It's going to be important to remember to install the set screw at the bottom because otherwise it'll be unsightly to look at. Now it's time to install the handrails on the wall. We simply take the butterfly portion of the split standoff here and we insert it into the split standoff that's attached to the shell wall. We might have to knock the standoffs around a little bit with a hammer just to get them to line up, but that's normal. Let's put it on the wall. Now that we've installed the handrails, all we have to do is pull the vinyl off the remaining panels and this job is done. That concludes the installation of the ECR A-Look cab. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and we look forward to seeing you next time.